Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our meeting today as we come together to address and resolve the ongoing industrial workplace dispute involving Miss Christy Fraser-Kirk and David Jones. Let's begin with an introduction around the room. If you could please state your name and role. I'll begin. My name is Ashley, and I'm the HR manager for David Jones.
I'm Gaurav, and I'm representing David Jones as an employer.
I'm Christy Fraser-Kirk, the employee.
And my name is Ella, and I'm representing Miss Fraser-Kirk.
Thank you, everyone. This meeting concerns allegations of sexual harassment experienced by Miss Fraser-Kirk during her employment with us as a junior publicist in 2010. Over a 2-month period, our former CEO, Mr. McInnes, allegedly used repeated sexual advances, inappropriate statements, and engaged in unwanted physical contact towards Miss Fraser-Kirk, as stated in the FCA case document. David Jones acknowledges that Mr. McInnes's behaviour was unprofessional and unacceptable. For this reason, we have accepted his resignation in June 2010. I'd like to formally acknowledge the seriousness of this matter and reiterate that the topic contradicts our values and policies at David Jones. David Jones is and always has been an equal opportunity employer, as stated in our 2006 Enterprise Agreement. We acknowledge that any type of harassment, including sexual, is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. We strive to achieve the objectives outlined in Section 3J of the Workplace Relations Act, because all people have a right to work in the environment free of all forms of harassment and discrimination. It has always been our intention to reduce the likelihood of harassing behaviour occurring in our workplace. Our internal policies abide by these standards and exist to protect all employees, ensuring we foster a respectful workplace culture. We understand that in this situation, Ms. Fraser-Kirk felt that the processes in place didn't support her when she needed it most. As Gillespie discusses in her case study on integrity violations, when a company's trust is damaged, it's not just about policies, it's about actions taken to rebuild the trust. And that's a key aim of today's negotiation. The allegations brought by Ms. Fraser-Kirk show that our policies have failed. This failure has caused significant reputational damage to the company and, more importantly, personal harm to Ms. Fraser-Kirk. The purpose of our meeting today is to address this sexual harassment issue with transparency, accountability, and a commitment to resolving the matter in a way that is fair and lawful. We will identify how harm has occurred, where our procedures have failed, and agree on proactive steps to restore trust and ensure this does not happen again. Let's begin with a statement from Ms. Fraser-Kirk's legal representative.
Thank you, Ashley. As you've outlined, this wasn't an isolated incident. This was repeated abuse of power by a senior executive. Under Section 28B of the Sex Discrimination Act, the definition of sexual harassment is clear, and this case meets every part of it. My client was subjected to a hostile work environment, which David Jones failed to address despite her complaints. This admission also breaches Section 106 of the Sex Discrimination Act, which holds employers vicariously liable unless they've taken all reasonable steps to prevent harassment. Telling Ms. Fraser-Kirk to just say no in her initial complaint clearly shows those steps were not taken. We're looking at serious breaches of the Sex Discrimination Act, the Fair Work Act, and the Workplace Health and Safety Act. Each imposes a duty of care to protect employees from psychological harm and discrimination.
From David Jones' perspective, we acted promptly in accordance with our internal grievances and workplace behaviour standards, as well as the Fair Works Act 2009, after learning of misconduct claims against Mr. McInnes. These conclusions have led directly to Mr. McInnes' resignation. This action complies with our obligation under the Work Health and Safety Act to maintain a safe workplace and to act swiftly in response to any claims that could jeopardize it. In compliance with Sex Discrimination Act and associated guidelines, we have started a thorough assessment and reviews of internal policies and processes, implemented mandatory ongoing training in workplace behaviors and harassment. We admit that this incident could have been approached differently. David Jones as a business and our HR team both acknowledge that we have made mistakes on multiple occasions. Both internal reporting and trust were at risk. Staff members may have felt pressure to not give Ms. Fraser-Kirk claims greater weightage due to the power imbalance established by Mr. McInnes' role as CEO, which again raises legitimate concerns about fairness and confidentiality. In saying that, I want to assure that David Jones as a business does not condone any such behaviors, as it is against our moral ground and business ethics as clearly stated in our business agreement. We as an employer want to provide a safe working environment for all our staff. As cited by Parker, organizations, same as David Jones, voluntarily implement compliance programs as a response to perceived risks of legal liability, major ethical breaches, and other adverse publicity outcomes before they occur. For very same reason we are here today. As previously mentioned, we are dedicated to examining all internal procedures to make sure that this similar occurrence never happen again.
Exactly. And from a HR standpoint, we failed in both response and prevention for Miss Fraser-Kirk. Research by Charlesworth also highlights how common it is for employees to feel silenced when reporting harassment and how organisations often fail to enforce anti-harassment policies, especially when senior leadership is involved. However, it is clearly stated under Section 6, Part 3-5 of the Fair Work Act that sexual harassment of workers is prohibited, meaning that regardless of Mr. McInnes's position as CEO, our policies should have flagged the internal breach when Ms. Fraser-Kirk first reported the issue and taken immediate action to investigate. We are here today to listen to Ms. Fraser-Kirk's claim. If you could shed some light on what your side is asking, then we can move forward.
I'm here to expose the pervasive issue of sexual harassment in the workplace and to be the voice for all of those who have been silenced. This is not just about my experience. It's about advocating for all women who feel unsafe in toxic workplace environments. I would prefer that my legal representative discuss our intentions with the group.
Thanks, Christy. I'll take it from here. We're here to work towards a fair outcome, one that genuinely recognises what my client went through and helps make sure no one else must go through it again. That means financial compensation of $37 million, a formal apology, and a real structural change at David Jones.
We understand your concerns, but David Jones has to protect our shareholders and staff moving forward. The resolution must be meaningful, not just financial. We need to find middle ground here where Ms. Fraser-Kirk feels heard and respected, whilst also enabling us to improve our internal systems to rebuild trust. It is our obligation under the Workplace Gender Equality Act, Section 3, and the Fair Work Act, Section 6, to create a safe, inclusive, and fair work environment. I agree with Christy. Awareness needs to be drawn to this issue so that David Jones can have effective internal policies when dealing with sexual harassment.
I can assure everyone here that what David Jones says in company policy and does in reality are vastly different. I initially made a complaint to a senior manager who advised me that next time this happens, I should be clear, tell him no, and he'll back off. How many other women has he done this to for a senior manager to respond like that? Employers have a responsibility to take reasonable actions to prevent sexual harassment and address it effectively when it occurs, and this didn't happen.
Look, we have made it very clear what we have done. Mr. McInnes is no longer employed by the company. We acted on quickly after realizing the gravity of the problem, and we have admitted our mistakes. Measures for accountability, policy evaluations, and training are all under progress. The issue has been resolved.
The issue is not resolved.
The organizations and its stakeholders' reputations have suffered greatly as a result of ongoing media coverage. In order to avoid any more harm, we suggest that all parties agree to stop all public discussions as advised in Section 10 under the Defamation Act 2005.
My colleagues saw what happened to me and watched on silently. Let me be clear, the CEO put his hands under my clothes, attempted to kiss me, and flooded me with text messages. I was forced to engage with the media to be taken seriously. In a study titled The Exploratory Investigation into Women's Experience of Sexual Harassment in the Workplace proves that sexual harassment is pervasive in the workplace, it's driven by power imbalances between men and women, and is perpetuated by ineffective organisational responses. David Jones has a systemic cultural issue when it comes to dealing with sexual harassment, and it's an unsafe workplace for women.
I will also emphasise that we did not seek out the media. It was only after Ms. Fraser-Kirk's concerns were ignored internally that she felt compelled to speak out publicly. This was a matter of being heard, not seeking headlines, and if it wasn't for the media, we would not be sitting here today.
We know you wanted to be here to discuss a settlement. A fair and reasonable settlement is always an option, but we believe the 37 million claim is widely out of proportion to previous court's decisions. In Richardson versus Oracle in 2014, for instance, federal court granted $130,000 in general aggravated damages for sexual harassment. This was significant at the time, but it is still a very small portion of what is being requested now. There are many examples where courts have constantly upheld moderate awards in comparable cases that can be viewed as a strong reference for this case. Looking at the historic upheld examples, we will be happy to discuss settlement terms further, but not at 37 million.
The $37 million represents around 5% of David Jones' earnings during McInnes's time as CEO. It's a symbolic amount, chosen to reflect the scale of harm caused.
Exactly. It takes into account the pain and suffering that this has caused me. I felt humiliated, dehumanized, and disempowered. Burns' research in 2018 states that sexual harassment often results in a decline in mental health and has the potential to negatively affect my long-term career aspirations, all for something that wasn't my fault. David Jones is one of Australia's most distinguished retailers. You have the resources to employ the best lawyers. I need a fair deal.
Thank you for admitting that, Christy. I want to acknowledge the pain the situation has caused you. Research from Pettyjohn shows that institutional betrayal can lead to symptoms of PTSD, and we want to avoid that for you. We've reviewed our internal systems and recognised where we have failed to address harassment complaints properly in the past. David Jones is committed to creating a safe work environment in line with obligations in the Fair Work Act 2009, Section 6. Regarding the $37 million request, we understand it symbolises the harm experienced. However, precedents set in Richardson v. Oracle show damages awarded are typically lower. We want to reiterate that a lower figure does not lessen the seriousness of your experience at all and wish to come to a solution both parties can be happy with.
We understand the initial figure might seem significant, and we're open to adjusting our position, like the approach taken in the Richard v. Oracle case, where flexibility allowed for a fair resolution. However, any settlement must still reflect the seriousness of this case. Ms. Fraser-Kirk is not only seeking damages, but also a lasting commitment from David Jones to ensure the protection and well-being of all employees moving forward.
I want those in power to be held accountable and for David Jones to enforce policies that protect employees from harassment and to provide a safe, respectful working environment.
Yes, we all want a fair resolution here that reflects David Jones's values, corrects our system failures, and guarantees a safe working environment.
We are willing to compromise with a solution here as advised by Ashcroft. Middle ground compromises can be more beneficial for both sides. We're also open to suggestions on procedural changes as well as a fair settlement amount for damages incurred.
Fantastic. Now that we have all of our common goals, we are going to have a 5-minute break so that each side can discuss our options and come back with acceptable solutions.
Christy, you've stood your ground. This isn't just about money. It's about holding them accountable for the harm you've endured. We'll push for a resolution that reflects your courage and the impact on your life.
I can't believe them. They're acting as if I'm the one that's done something wrong.
They know.
They're playing hardball. I've committed to using a portion of the settlement damages to support causes related to sexual harassment awareness and prevention, and I want to keep that promise. I want $15 million.
I'll be honest, they could drag this through the courts to weigh you down. That's a tactic they use often. But we both know this is a clear case of power, abuse, and system failure. Realistically, asking for $1 million is fair. It covers your damages, legal costs, and sends out a strong message without risking years of drawn-out litigation.
Okay, $1 million. My legal fees alone will be at least $300,000. And considering the uncertainty of my future earning potential because of this, I won't accept anything less than $800,000. I also want McInnes to be held responsible in some way.
I understand. $800,000 is a firm minimum. I'll take that figure back to them along with a clear message that you're not just settling for compensation, but for accountability. Let's see if they're ready to meet us in good faith.
Ms. Fraser-Kirk and her lawyer have employed a strategic and power-enhancing tactic by involving the media here. It's what Lewicki explains as manipulating the opponent's network to gain leverage by using the negative attention to put pressure on us. In my research, I came across an article by Pettyjohn which explains media involvement often comes from a power imbalance, especially when victims feel their complaints aren't being heard. However, the $37 million ask is out of the question.
I agree. 37 million demand is not only unrealistic, it is entirely unreasonable. It is a deliberate, highball strategy designed to exploit media pressure and push for an inflated settlement. While the media approach has undeniably put us in a difficult position, I'm not comfortable with that figure. Other cases are nowhere near it, and we will not entertain figures like that. Proportionality or legal precedent. It's a hard line for me.
Agreed. But we also need to think about beyond the money here. Public trust in David Jones has dropped. To repair it, we need to follow the trust repair model from Gillespie. We must be transparent about the sexual harassment issue, take responsibility while expressing genuine remorse to Ms. Fraser Kirk. Once we accept a financial consequence, we can commit to positive change by reforming our systems and our culture. A fair figure shows we're serious. It can't be a lowball offer.
I know what you're saying, but I did some research, and from my understanding in Richardson versus Oracle case that I reviewed to gain further understanding, the federal court raised general damages for pain and suffering from 18,000 to 100,000, plus an extra 30,000 for economic loss. That ruling, which involves serious violations at work, has made in light of the injury sustained rather than the employer's financial situation. In another similar case, Cordis versus Ruba only granted 15,000 in general damages for sexual harassment. These cases demonstrate that there is no precedent in Australian federal court to justify the proposed $37 million amount. The demand is unjustified. I'm willing to offer 1.5 million max. That includes everything. Furthermore, McKenna's acts are the actual cause of these circumstances. He should be held responsible personally rather than David Jones being solely responsible for the financial burden.
I agree. We need to hold firm to our financial limit and add our company's commitment to procedural change. That way, we maintain financial control and are still taking responsibility for the public and the shareholders to see.
What about the formal apology that Ms. Fraser Cook's legal team are requesting? Do we need to provide one to start with? If we do choose to issue one, it will be strictly private and confidential. There will be no public release. This is non-negotiable.
I agree. That way, we are still acknowledging the harm caused, but also keeping the extent of the issue away from the media attention. Let's add a stipulation to keep this settlement private.
Absolutely. That way we are settling boundaries with the team and protecting the company's reputation. David Jones is prepared to amend and strengthen internal processes, issue a confidential private apology, and pay $200,000 to compensate for damages, lost income, and related consequences. The reasonable resolution based on the known fact is in this offer is in line with the legal precedent established in Richardson versus Oracle.
If I may pause here, we're addressing a serious case of workplace sexual harassment. This isn't just a breach of the Sex Discrimination Act, but a failure of corporate duty of care. An offer of $200K doesn't reflect the harm caused. It overlooks emotional trauma, lost income, ongoing therapy, and reputational damage. Given the severity of this case, we're proposing a revised counter-offer of $15 million, with Ms. Fraser Kirk intending to donate a portion to sexual harassment organisations.
David Jones are committing to policy changes.
What policy changes?
Christy, we are holding ourselves accountable for the damages dealt to you as per the guidance in Gillespie. We will reassess and strengthen our internal complaint processes, include quarterly reviews for harassment complaints, and set up anonymous reporting hotline for employees to report harassment or discrimination. This transparency will build trust, and we hope that Ms. Fraser Kirk feels heard as a result.
Your client claim for $15 million demand is unreasonable and not supported by any precedent in the Australian sexual harassment cases. I refuse to accept it. We are willing to negotiate a more realistic settlement than our current offer, but it must be within a fair and justifiable range. The applicant has also failed to provide any valid justification for a claim of this size. More so, provide any substantial information to support a claim of this nature. We will not entertain such an inflated request.
Are you seriously implying that I have no valid justification for this claim?
Ms. Fraser Kirk has endured severe emotional harm, including anxiety, shame, and humiliation. This isn't just another workplace issue, it is deeply personal. And as she mentioned, every person in Australia now knows her name. Her privacy is gone, and her once professional, low profile reputation is now in the national spotlight. This is something that must be meaningfully acknowledged in any settlement. Her legal fees alone are $300,000.
On behalf of David Jones, we sympathize deeply with your client and acknowledge the experience they have had. Such behavior in workplace should have never been tolerated by any employee. Given what came to light today, we are ready to cover legal fees and certain damages. We've already taken important steps like accepting Mr. McKinney's resignation and starting a thorough review of our workplace policies. We are proposing a reasonable settlement of $850,000, which covers damages, legal fees, and Mr. McKinney's contribution. We hope these actions offer your client some ongoing reassurance and show our commitment to doing better. We believe this offer is fair and reasonable and hope it will be accepted. Your client and David Jones as a company has suffered already enough because of this dispute. The harm has increased as a result of media coverage. This is the final offer that we will make. If your client chooses to decline this, we will be happy to proceed to a trial. You now have an option, and you need to decide. We have no desire to keep this issue open for any longer than absolutely necessary. We all know the risk associated with a trial, including unknown results and increased media attention. Talk to your client about this and let us know how you want to continue. We won't extend this offer.
We understand the gravity of this situation and the offer on the table. Can I please have a moment with my client?
Of course.
Christy, while I believe your experience justifies a higher amount, also recognise that taking this to court will be difficult, with no certainty of a more favourable outcome. Compared to similar cases, this offer already is above standard precedent, and resolving this now allows all parties to move forward with dignity and accountability. I strongly encourage you to consider this offer.
Well, if this is the best I'm going to get, I'll agree to the offer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. We agree to the settlement offer. We will work with David Jones to finalise documentation within the agreed timeframe.
To conclude, we will prepare the formal settlement agreement, which outlines all promised commitments. These include policy reforms, quarterly internal reviews, and improved reporting systems. David Jones will also issue a formal apology to Ms. Fraser-Kirk, acknowledging the emotional and professional harm caused by the company's poor handling of former CEO Mark McInnes's inappropriate behaviour. The total settlement amount is $850,000, which includes a personal contribution from Mr. McInnes himself and coverages of Ms. Fraser-Kirk's legal fees. This agreement includes a confidentiality clause to prevent further media exposure for all involved. All parties will have 7 days to read and sign the settlement. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for your attendance and respectful behaviour today. We believe this outcome allows everyone to move forward positively, a true win-win scenario. This concludes our meeting. Goodbye.